In 2006, he was appointed chair of the Vinyl Research and Innovation Center. Then in 2008, Donald was awarded the Masi Prize, which is one of the wine world's most prestigious awards, given to an elite few who have left their mark on the history of winemaking. The Masi Foundation Prize meant that Donald received a special cask of Amarone, an Appassimento-style wine for which Masi is one of the acknowledged leaders in the world, and he's going to be talking a little bit about that. Always the innovator, Donald has been working on the idea of setting up an Appassimento project for the entire Ontario wine industry for some time. A major step forward was made in January of 2010 when the Vinyl Research and Innovation Center held a meeting and workshop to discuss the future of Niagara Appassimento, at which time Donald became the project chair. To tell us more about the Appassimento project and Ontario's growing Appassimento-style wine industry, I present Donald Ziraldo.
Who was the family member who heads the family estate at the Vancouver Wine Festival. And it was through a compliment because we were walking into the dining hall, which is about 10 times the size of this. And Sandra said, "Oh, would you mind sitting at our table?" He said, "I'd really like to learn something from you." I thought, that's interesting. Some guy who's been making wine for 400 years, he's going to ask me a question about wine. So we sat down and he said, here's the dilemma I face. Ricciotto, which is the sweet version of Amarone. How many of you have had Ricciotto? So you're fairly familiar with it. So it's a sweeter version, a much older version. It's been made for 2,000 years, and the Roman soldiers used to be given a stipend of it because it was energy. They didn't have sugar at the time or whatever energy drink we do drink now. So he said, I sell a bottle of Ricciotto for $18 for a 750 ml bottle. We're Italian, we've been at this for a long time, my grandfather, my great-grandfather. You guys in Canada sell half a bottle of ice wine for between $50 and $100 a bottle. And he said, that's what I want to learn from you, something like that. So with that, we embarked on a little project, and we were going to do a rinascimento of Ricciotto. Because if any of you know Masi, and if you've been to the magnificent facility, the Foresteria, which is their agriturismo, which is attached to their property, is owned by Sergio Alighieri, Marchese Sergio Alighieri, and he's the direct descendant of Dante Alighieri. So when Dante was thrown out of Florence, because he was trying to change the quote then Italian language, which didn't make a lot of sense because there was way too many Italians disagreeing on which Italian they should speak, he went to Verona, set up shop, and this property is actually a descendant of their property. So we were going to do the Rinascimento of Ricciotto. And we toyed with it many times, changed the technique. I won't go into detail because it was 4 or 5 years of work. But then when I left it, still the project kind of fell apart. But I still kept a great interest. And that's where we started this idea at Vineland that we would bring the Appassimento concept to Ontario in order to assist us. So this entire group of people, many of which are represented here tonight, along with the Vineland Research Station, Dr. Brownbridge is heading up the program, Vince Luca at Brock University, Debbie Inglis, the chair, trying to put all of these different pieces of history and scientific research together to see if we can adapt it to our conditions. So this is the way traditional Appassimento is made. The grapes are picked during the harvest, normal harvest, and then in the traditional manner, they were hung to dry by this method, laying them outside in the courtyard where it's sunny and warm, or they were in barns like this to dry, and the concept is simply to get them off the vine so that they continue to mature. And grapes are one of those things that when you take them off the vine, they stop maturing. In essence, they don't get like a banana, they don't continue to get riper. They stop their physiological process. So what this is really doing is drying the grapes. So appassimento means simply that, drying. So you're removing the water, and in principle you're removing about 20 to 30% of the moisture, and in essence concentrating the acids, the tannins, and all of those components of the grape itself. The danger is that if you have the wrong humidity, or you don't get the right temperature, or if the berries happen to be touching each other, because when you put a bunch of grapes down, like you do in your basket of fruit, the berries touch, they'll rot. So you got to be very, very careful with the ventilation and the humidity in the air. So then you become highly scientific, and this is one of the operations that's done by computer. It monitors the ventilation that opens up the air from outside, monitors the temperature, the humidity, and gets very scientific. So with all of that technology, we took the concept here back home and thought of different ways we could adapt those conditions. When I was chair at the Vineland Research Station, in this greenhouse here, which says Sunrise, is Robert Bierhaus, and he grows petunias and all kinds of flowers. And in Niagara, between the month of November through January, the sunlight days is too short to grow flowers. So basically the greenhouses are shut down, they use to repair. So this seemed like a nice operation, because Robert said, well, if you're doing this, maybe you can use my greenhouse. I get to make a few bucks renting it to the grape growers, and the grape growers get to utilize this process. And remember, in a greenhouse, it's all about sunlight, humidity, and ventilation. So that was one technique that we applied. And these are just stacked in these plastic boxes, which is a little easier than the wood. The university is actually doing a very minute scientific research on what happens in detail to the chemistry of the grapes, so that we can follow it a little more scientifically. You know, wine used to be made by artists who used to do it because of tradition that they learned and in the region that they were in, whether you're in Italy or France. The scientific components have become a fundamental part of modern day wine, and that's just the way grape wines become great. They are different, many of them, and there's a big argument all the time between the traditional style and the new style of wines. And if you taste wines from back in 100 years ago, not only did they not taste the same, but they had different aging capabilities and so on. So what this was an attempt to take the science and apply it. And I had the pleasure of attending in Italy about a month ago, the Masi Technical Symposium. And they talked about Appassimento, and we tasted just as many wines for 4 hours on the science and the technology that goes into the different grape varieties that are used there. Now, they use 3 particular varieties: Corvina, Rondinella, thank you. Was that what I was looking for? Conrad to tell me that third one. Conrad. Thanks for joining us. You all listen to Conrad on CBC, I'm sure. What's that, Conrad? You're going to do an Appassimento?
No, I got a couple of questions later on.
Oh, I'm sure you do. You always do. That's why I always prepare myself. Especially after I saw you back in the corner and read my notes again. So at Covey, which is Cool Climate and Knowledge and Viticulture student at Brock University, we've got the scientists there, the biochemists, who are analyzing some of the things that happen in the process. If you want to learn more about it, just look up Appassimento on Google, thank God for Google, and you can go through there and really kill yourself with all the scientific experimentation that is going on, particularly in the Veneto, but also that we're doing that'll help you understand the process even better. One of the interesting things at the seminar in Verona, one of the professors from the University of Verona identified by DNA sequencing which of the characteristics most enhanced the Amarone style, and it was the Corvina grape against Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, so that for some reason the old-timers, who had no idea what DNA was or any capability to measure it, identified that Corvina grape as the best grape variety to make Amarone and the characteristics that it wanted. Now we're going back and scientifically proving that they were right. I found that as a very interesting analysis of science. I have a slight advantage about something called tradition. Because for some reason, whenever people are offered an Italian wine or a French wine or California wine or a wine from Canada, There are still a few people that actually, believe it or not, pick the French or the Italian. Now, if it's Chateau Mouton, Rothschild, or Lafitte, or Nicam, or Gaia, Antinori, Mondavi, I can handle it. But most of the other stuff, I'll take an Ontario wine anytime. 07 vintage, the first wine, and feel free to start tasting with the wines. You are all very, very attentive to my presentation, and hardly anybody tests the wine. It's described, and I'm only going to read this because I haven't tasted it, but I know the wine well. Deep ruby purple, rich plummy aromas, a hint of chocolate. And what I like about the Amarones is the consistent raisiny nose that you get. And that's obviously from the process that's of the drying grapes and some of the botrytis.